Entrepreneurship, it sounds sexy, but it's hard. It's incredibly rewarding. It is so soul moving. You're going to find gratitude in things you never would think you'd find it in, but know that your horizon has to be 10 years plus. It may not take you that long. It may only take you 3, but set it for 10 so your expectations are set. All you have to do is stay in the game. You have not lost if you stay in the game.
Our guest today is the CEO of RockBox Fitness and Beem Light Sauna. He's owned and operated multiple RockBox studios and currently owns the flagship Beem Light Sauna studio in uptown Charlotte, North Carolina. Welcome to the show, my friend and host of ThriveMore, a brand new business, health, and wealth podcast, Roger Martin.
Hey, thank you. That was a wonderful intro. I appreciate that.
Yes, sir. Thank you for being with us. And I'm super honored to have the opportunity to work with you. I'm going to give us a little shameless plug on the podcast. As we record this, we're just wrapping up onboarding for ThriveMore, the podcast that you're the host of. And my team and myself have just been energized and excited to work with you personally.
Great.
And I got to give your team a shout out, man. Everybody on your team, Becca, Gabby, Lindsay, everybody that I've worked with one-on-one has been like world class, right? So
thank you.
Getting back to us, energy, personality, like you hit a ton of home runs. So I have a feeling in this conversation, we're going to talk about identifying a great leader, but also identifying great team members to make it all happen, make the magic tricks happen. There's people behind the scenes. And so I have a feeling that you're great at identifying talent, right? So because I see it live, I see it with your team.
Yeah, it's hard to build a great team. It's hard to build a sustainable organization if you don't have the right, everybody hears that, get the right people on the bus, then get them in the right seat. You have to have the right people on the bus. That is, if you can do 2 things, if you can learn how to hire well and lead, and then secondly, persuade and influence. And I don't mean manipulate. I mean persuade and influence so that they win, you win, the customer wins. The sky is the limit. Like those are the 2 main skills. I don't know why they don't teach those more in our formal education system, but those 2 are how you build an organization.
Yeah, talk about that. Like, what are some of the key identifiers when you have someone sitting in front of you, whether it's actually, literally a job application or interview, and just someone on the team who maybe you're identifying things in them and they're ready for a level up. What are some things you look for?
Yeah, great question. So let's start with identifying talent to bring into the organization and onto your team. I'm a huge fan in competency selection interviewing. That means that you're actually interviewing for traits and characteristics versus skill sets and experience, because skill sets can be taught. In fact, if you have the right raw talent, you can really teach that person to do almost anything if they have the propensity for it. So my entire team, not just myself, my entire team interviews very specifically with a very specific format, specific questions, and a cadence that's all around behavioral interviewing, it's also called, which is something I was taught by Hay Group, which I think they became the Boston Consulting Group 25 plus years ago. And I've stuck with the same process for this entire time because it works. Because the best predictor of future behavior, future success, is their past success and their past behavior. And a lot of times in interviewing, we ask like, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Well, I'm a perfectionist, Everybody's going to say that, right? Like we always know what they're going to say. So instead of the same old canned questions, I want to understand, okay, tell me about a time when, you had to achieve this goal, but you had to overcome obstacles and work with a team. Let's break that apart. Let's go really deep into that. It is something you have to practice. I mean, competency selection interviewing is not something that comes naturally to people. You do have to practice it. And I believe a lot in role play, role play in the office, role play for selling skills, role play for interviewing skills. And when you do that well, you're going to figure out very quickly, was this person just on the ship or were they actually piloting the ship for this given initiative? Now you're going to hear a lot of we's and us, and that's fine because we're taught that way, but I'll immediately interrupt them and say, nope, I told you I was going to interrupt you. And here it goes. What did you do?
Yeah.
What was your role? What were you thinking? Why did you make that decision? What was your next decision after that?
Mhm.
So I could go on for hours, and that would bore your listeners. But I would certainly encourage them to do a lot of research on competency selection interviewing, behavioral interviewing, as it's called. There's many different formats of it, but the crux of it, the base of it, is one of the best skills you can have as a leader.
Yeah, and it's tough too. It's like a first date or two, right? I mean, usually for depending on the job, if it's maybe the corner grocery store, it might be one interview and you get the gig. But even now, I think they bring it through a couple interviews. I know
Mhm.
when I was getting hired as an insurance agent, I had to get licensed and all that good stuff. But aside from that, I had 3 different interviews with every person on the ladder above me. I had to interview with them, and then by the time I got to the area, like the director that covered, a couple different states, the area director, he had me do like a 24-page iPad presentation and get up in front of him. And I remember doing really well, and I was super excited. I was in my early 20s, just newly
Yeah,
married and everything, and felt like a boss when I got that phone call, and I was doing great. But it
sure.
actually led me into the person I am today and the experience I am
Yeah,
today. But learn how to present. But the reason I bring that up is everybody really brings their A game to the interview or 2 or 3, and you're like trying to figure out, okay, what's the real person here, right? So you're trying to do all these behavioral things and really get inside their head. And recently I interviewed Robin Dreek, who he was a secret agent that actually his job was recruiting Russian spies. And so
wow.
he picked up on everything, what you said, how you looked, your body language, what you didn't say, what you
Yep.
didn't do, everything, man. And basically was taking like a live inventory of the person that he's talking to, and it helped him in business. Now he's a successful business coach and helps people with these behavioral understanding, just the intricacies of it. And again, words, but feelings, how it all comes together. And that's a really important thing for a leader like yourself to have, to identify the team members. What about so that's kind of just anybody on the team, you bring them in, you really want to hear the I in their story opposed to the we or the they. What about a leader? What are some characteristics that you're just saying, we got talent. Talent's great. Like on a football field, we got a quarterback that can sling it 75 yards, and he's 6'6" and looks amazing. But can he read a defense? That's
Yeah.
my football analogy. I go to sports all the time for my analogies. But what about in the business space? Raw talents, gift of gab, all that stuff that goes into a great salesperson and maybe makes him a great leader too. What other things do you look for?
Empathy, which cannot be taught. Empathy is something that you have to develop on your own. It's not like a course you can go through. People have to have the will to win. I kind of say I can't put in what God left out, right? If it's not in there, I'm not going to be able to instill this winning spirit, this drive, self motivation. We also look for innovative problem solving, especially when you're building a team. If every team member has to come in to you or their direct supervisor and say, is this the right idea, or is this the best way, or what should I do, versus going through that exercise of, okay, what is a good solution here? Here's the problem. What are 2, 3 good solutions? Let me go ahead and troubleshoot those, whiteboard those in my own office before I ever bring that to my boss, and then say, hey, I've already looked at 3 solutions here. This is the clear winner. I'd like to move forward with this. Do you have any concerns, or can I go ahead and go with this? That is the kind of person that you can build an organization with.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned, Becca and Gabby and Lindsay, these people that are on my team. We've got a team of 23 here at ThriveMore Brands that house the 2 brands that you talked about, RockBox Fitness and Beem Light Sauna. And what I love about that team is they will come to me and say, hey, here's the issue, but I've already put this into place, and I just want to make sure that you don't have an issue with it, because we're already seeing traction with it. Great. That's wonderful. That's innovative problem solving. And so I look for results orientation, innovative problem solving, empathy, and then really basically teamwork and collaboration. Those are the 4 traits, behaviors that I look for. And I'll just dovetail one thing that you talked about, because this just happened. We interviewed for a sales position. We ended up making the hire, but I was the lead interviewer for the final interview, and the VP of the department was with me. And we usually have 2 people, and one will take notes, and one will be the lead, and I was the lead. And I asked some tough questions, and I went back and said, I need you to talk to me more about this. And what aren't you telling me? And, some very tough questions. And at the end, he said, wow, man, those were really tough questions. Like she answered them great, but those were some tough questions. And I said, the reason, and it was a lesson, right? It was a teaching moment. I said, the reason that managers or interviewers will not ask interviewees those tough questions or go back and say, wait a second, let's dig deeper there. They're actually subconsciously afraid they're going to hear an answer they don't want. And now they've disqualified that candidate. And they know, and damn, we got to go back to the well again. And this is a long, arduous process.
Yeah.
And,
So
and
they're
so
lofting them up like volleyballs right in front of the net. Like we really want to see them spike the ball, and they're great at spiking it. But wait, how they serve? How do they play off
exactly.
balance, right?
Yeah, 100%. And people, I've just seen it. I've been in the game for 30 some years and interviewed thousands of people, and I've watched other people interview, and I can tell they don't want to ask the tough question, because what if the answer is bad? That means we got to go back to square one, right? And
yeah.
but that's way better than bringing somebody on and knowing you've got a bad fit.
Yeah. A lot of those
Yeah.
traits, Roger, I appreciate you sharing that. And I knew that you've been a leader of, I thought it was over 500. Now you said thousands. So I lost track of you over
Yeah.
the years, I guess, looking back at your story. It's really
Sure.
incredible, guys. The reason I got Roger on here, obviously we're working together, but there's a reason that I paused and I reached out and said, like, hey man, do you want to come on the show? And he could have easily said, I don't have time for it, because I know you're not only balancing, you're the CEO of multiple companies and you got a lot of other things going on, and you're launching your podcast. So if you said, give me 6 months or a year, I would have totally understood. But here we are, just about a week later, right, from I think when we had that conversation. So I'm grateful for you, but there's a big underlying reason I wanted you on. And sometimes you hear these people talking on a podcast, and they got the great soundbite, and they got the great social media clip, and they look good and they sound good, and they got the Ferraris and all their pictures and everything. And then you look into their story, and they're like, they've been an entrepreneur for like 8 months, and they coached a couple people in Huntington Beach, and now all of a sudden they're an expert. When I look at your
Yep.
story, you got 20 plus years of real CEO level experience, and every company I've seen that you've been with, you've made yourself. You didn't start at the top. You got yourself to the top, or eventually you
Mhm.
did start at the top because of your experience, but you're qualified for this conversation. And I think anybody who's tuning in needs to acknowledge that a lot of times you can get someone on. I'm not talking about mic'd up really, because I vet my people on my show are here for a great reason. And I've been blessed with over 180 amazing people. But man, I'm just excited for your story. And this is something you and I have never talked about, but
Yeah.
share your entrepreneurial spirit, man. Where did that come from? These qualities you're talking about in leadership are great things we learn as an entrepreneur. But man, I don't know your story. So how did that all
Sure.
begin?
Yeah. Wow, that's a big question. So let me unpack it, but in a with some brevity. So I grew up with my father owning his own business. It was like a small cleaning chemicals, car care chemicals that he would buy from a manufacturer and repackage, as his own brand. But kind of a smaller operation, but certainly that entrepreneur spirit. I didn't realize that when I was a kid. It's funny when you look back. I didn't think of my dad as an entrepreneur, but that's what he
Mm-hmm.
was. But that was just my dad.
Mm-hmm.
But I've always enjoyed the selling and persuasion and the ability to influence in a positive manner, because I realized very quickly when I was younger, if I were selling at a lemonade stand or, you know, selling, whatever
Did you
school
ever do the
things,
newspapers? Did you do the newspaper
it's
when you
funny.
were a
I
kid?
never did newspapers, and I almost said that as an example, but I'm like, I never sold
I didn't do
newspapers,
it.
so I
Yeah.
shouldn't say that. But like magazine subscriptions through the school thing and all that, I
Yeah.
always loved the ability to control my own destiny and to really govern how much money I made. And as soon as I got into actually when I was in high school, I worked at a pizza place, but I was the guy that was like in a separate room on the phone selling pizzas and upselling people into, two pizzas, or, do you want sodas with that? Or can we include this? And then I got a little piece of commission on that, and I got a taste for it and I loved it. Then I did some telemarketing in college, and then I did more sales in college. When I got out of school, I went to work in the pharmaceutical business, and I loved the ability to interact at a high level,
Mm-hmm.
use logic, use emotion too. As you know, people buy with emotion, even physicians buy with emotion, and then they justify it with logic, and just studied the game. Like there's so many books on sales and great books on sales. There's so many books on persuasion and influence, on win-win negotiating. And I couldn't read enough. I just devoured it. And I still do. To this day, I'm almost 53. At home on my coffee table is a book on pricing. I'm reading this boring as hell German author, great content. But it's
the
not
psychology of pricing, basically.
exactly psychology
That
of
is
pricing. Yeah. So there's like, Predictably Irrational is a wonderful book, and it's fun to read. The one I'm reading right now is not quite as fun, but it's a lot of research in it. So I just love the psychology of how a human being makes a purchasing decision. Love it. And what I found at a young age in my career is, geez, the harder I work and the smarter I get at this and more effective, the more money I make. And, when I was younger, it's funny, when you're younger, I've always realized that people, I haven't always realized. What I have realized is, poor people that stay poor, they make money to pay their bills. And that's what money serves. It pays their bills because that's their most dire need.
Survival.
Yeah. The middle class and upper middle class make money to buy things. Hey, if I make this much or I get this promotion, I can buy a BMW 7 Series, or I can buy a bigger house, or I can wear a Rolex, or I can go to Turks and Caicos, or I can, but it's an achievement oriented thing to where they buy things. And I was there in my life for a long time. I had my Beamer, I had 2 Audis, I had a Mercedes, I went through that whole run. So I'm not, wasn't absent of that.
Sure.
But I've gotten to the point in my life now where I realize the purpose of money, at least in my life, is to be able to create more money through creating more value. And so I don't chase the nicer car. I don't chase the bigger house. I've got a nice house. I drive a Dodge Durango because I don't want to have to think about something. I want to be able to park it anywhere I want in a parking lot and not care if somebody hits it.
Right.
But I accrue wealth now to be able to invest that wealth to create more wealth. And it's a very different way of thinking. And so my entrepreneur spirit really kicked in 2016, 17, when I was in corporate America for the 25th year, and just had this epiphany of, I don't want to make other people wealthy any longer. Like I've made so many people well, I made myself somewhat wealthy, but I've made other people really wealthy in the business of Pharma. And I just thought, I want to use these skills for myself, and there's a big and there, and I want to help young professionals get the mentorship that maybe I didn't always have in my professional career, get the development, get the exposure that I didn't always have in my younger career. Because you're told in corporate America, just do this, stay right in this box, and then when you're ready, we'll let you know. And then I want to, and I love some of the people you've already worked with on my team, giving them a lot more responsibility than people normally at that age would be given, because the right person they'll rise up to the occasion.
Rise to it,
yeah. So I've really found the way I look at wealth and wealth accretion is different than I used to, because I don't do it to buy more things. I do it to build more companies. And with young people, it's my kids are 22 and 19 now. So I guess I kind of, I'm a surrogate for some of these young people here in their professional development, and really, really enjoy that.
Yeah. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounds like you're more interested now in making an impact. The word that's jumping out at me right now is impact over things. And that kind of gets into the conversational legacy, which is usually where I kind of put the bow on the end of an episode, but we can kind of get to that conversation. What we're actually going to do is take a quick 2-minute timeout, give some love to our sponsors, one of which is Social Chameleon. And we're going to do that. We'll be right back with Roger Martin. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you, and that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight, and Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting, so what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. All right, we're back in action with Roger Martin. And remember, you can connect with him on social media. I got his links clickable in the show notes, his companies that he represents, and he's the CEO of in the show notes as well. And if you're interested in checking his podcast out, ThriveMore, I highly recommend it. It's a brand new show. And by the time this is airing and you're listening to this and watching us on YouTube, thank you for being with us today. Go and check out ThriveMore. And that is also clickable in the show notes. So everything is really easy to find. Roger, right before the break, you were talking about your entrepreneurial journey, kind of coming out of 25 years in corporate, climbing that ladder. You were in Pharma, which I didn't know until last night, doing a little deeper dive before we talked today. I was surprised to see that. My ex-wife's father, so he was my father-in-law for many years. We were very close. He's in the pharma industry. Nice guy. Kind of reminds me a little bit of yourself, just as how you carry yourself, and big heart and all the qualities that you have. And I was surprised. I didn't know that. But then to see you go in from there into the fitness industry, I think RockBox came first and then Beem, right? So talk about that transition real quick. Like, how the heck did you go from pharma to fitness?
Yeah. So I have always been passionate about health and fitness. Love combat sports. I'm one of the biggest UFC fans you're ever going to meet, and was actually training in MMA for fitness. Although when I say that, I would come home every night just beat to hell, and my wife is like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I'm competing." She's like, "No, you're losing. You're losing." And you may want to reconsider this. So I ended up, long story short, my son wanted to learn how to box, but not do MMA. So I ended up getting connected with another gentleman here in the Charlotte metro area, which is where we're headquartered. He had 2 boxing for fitness studios, where no sparring, none of that stuff, and wanted to franchise. Really didn't know how to franchise. Wasn't quite sure what the next step was. I had a deep sales and marketing background. I wasn't an expert on franchising, but I was fortunate enough to have the capital to put in and fully fund the venture, do all the legal paperwork, pay lawyers ridiculous amounts of money to have all the documents done. We invested about $100,000 in the brand and the marketing of the brand and the building of it. And the real short story there is, he wanted me to be his first franchisee. I said, "I'd rather be your business partner and build a national brand if you've got the stomach for that and you're ready for that." And he certainly was. And so, we came together very, very quickly. It was called something else back then, his studios, but we renamed it RockBox Fitness. Started that in 2017. I built the first flagship in 2017, and then became was named the CEO of that company. Right. And then 2018, we started franchising. Today, we've got 154 licenses awarded and about 56. I think 56 opened as we're taping this show. It opened last night. Yeah. So
now, when you travel, do you pop in just to check them out?
Of course.
Do people recognize who you are, and they kind of...
Some do from the training videos, because we've got a big learning management system. And so I'll walk in and they're like, "You're the dude from the videos." So yeah.
I had a really cool moment. I'm going to share this with you. I think you'd appreciate it. Where things changed for me in my head, as far as I grew up blue collar. My dad worked at the Ford stamping plant, stamping doors out. And basically my whole growing up was just stay out of trouble, make mom and dad proud, and you'll figure something out later on. But it was kind of this blue collar up, which was good, because it kind of taught me a little bit of the grit side of life. But then as I was working for Sleep Number, which is a great company. It's my
Mm-hmm.
first like high ticket sales job, and my first year with the company, Super Green, they wanted me to do 550,000 in sales. I ended up doing like over 847, and I won President's Circle. And I had that moment where everybody that was on the training videos that I thought I couldn't even tell you if they were paid actors or not, or if they were actually really people that were running the company. When I went to the President's Circle, like dinner in this nice place out in Park City, like where the Olympics were held a couple of years earlier than this, and we're having dinner, and I'm literally like cracking a beer with the CEO of the company, and his name was Bill, and I'm talking to him and a bunch of these leaders, and I just realized how they were cool people. They were like you and I talking right now. They didn't have
Yeah.
this big, inflated persona. They were cool, and that's when things changed for me. I go, whether it's another company or my own company someday, I know that these are the people I enjoy hanging with, the way they're thinking big. I'm excited to be in these conversations opposed to, just kind of playing small ball. So it changed for
Yeah.
me when I was like 25. I'm 37 now. So over the last 10, 12 years, all this has been growing. So I think that's cool
Yeah.
that you pop in and people recognize you from the videos, because I very much have lived in that moment of knowing, and that's cool. Yeah, and I hope
Yeah.
people would
Yeah.
take you aside and maybe learn something from you on the spot too.
A lot of them do, which is really cool. And I'm glad to give them the time for sure. For sure.
Roger, another thing I appreciate about you, I've only known you for a short time. I'm helping you, obviously we're getting guests on your show, and we're looking at some great people to come on. Bob Berg's a name that someone who's on my show. He's a fantastic person. I just thought this guy would be great for your show. I sent him his information over to you. And I think it was the next day, you emailed me back. You're like, I loved Go Giver. I've been cover to cover. And you start telling me about things you learned from the book. I was blown away by that. It just goes to show that at any point in time, you're a student of the game. Like, you're not like, oh, I've been
Mm-hmm.
a leader for companies for 25 years. I got all these companies, 150 companies underneath me. And just put a microphone in front of my face. I got some good stuff to say. Like, you're literally coming at this with this amazing. That's why I'm so excited to work with you. But I think that's
Yeah.
great. Student of the game. So always be learning, right?
Leaders are readers, and people, they should continually invest in their own development, just forever till
Mm.
till the day that you have no more days. It is, and everybody has a different form of learning. Sometimes it's audiobooks, sometimes it's podcasts, sometimes it's reading. I kind of like all of that, but for sure, especially if you're going to have a guest, I think you owe them, the due diligence and doing the homework, because it makes for a richer conversation. But also, God forbid you actually learn something from reading their book, and just like Go Giver, took some great lessons from that. And
Yeah,
I've actually recommended that book to 3 or 4 other people already, and it's
I
only been
believe
a
it.
couple
Yeah.
of days since I
Yeah,
read it.
he has a series of them too, but Go Giver's kind of the marquee one,
Yeah,
episode one, if you will, of the trilogy kind
yeah,
of thing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's a fantastic. And again, one of the reasons I love to have you on is you're a great example. You're a role model for me. I just want you to know that. And I'm excited to spend this extra time with you. We're going to do 2.0. I know we're kind of running out of time here. You got a jet, I
sure,
have to jet. We're going to do 2.0 very soon, get to
okay,
maybe a little bit more deeper dive into your story. I did not know your dad ran a business. I'm not surprised to hear that. So maybe we can talk about some of the things you were literally doing in your younger years. But now that you're here at this point in life, we got a bunch of young entrepreneurs tuning in. They're at the edge of their seats. They're waiting to hear
yep.
something that they can take and run with and really apply to their business. If you could sum it up in maybe 3 or 4 key components, what would you say are some of those components to your personal success?
That's a great question. One, again, I would go back to leaders are readers. If you're not if you don't always have a book in front of you or on your coffee table, your bedside table, whatever, that you're reading every single day, some book. And I would argue that reading a book one time is not nearly enough. If it's a good book, that book should be revisited 3, 4, 5 times, dog-eared, highlighted. You want to consume the book, and then you want to put the book into action. So don't just read that book. Don't just listen to that podcast. Don't listen to this podcast and say, oh, that was cool, and then go back on your day. Say,
Mm-hmm.
how am I going to take that one concept out of all the things I talked about, and I'm going to change my trajectory today? We got a guy here at work that always talks about, go from the head to the heart to the feet. So you got to understand it, then you got to believe it and be passionate about it, but then go do it. go execute. And so many people get lost in the execution standpoint. And then I guess I would pass on to your listeners, especially if they're entrepreneurs of any age, really, but certainly a young entrepreneur. Guys, the rented Lambos on social media and the club pics and the standing in front of a jet that they don't own, that's to get you to click. Like, that is not how entrepreneurship works. Yes, there have been some overnight 100 millionaires made in crypto or some, amazing stroke of luck, but the average person accrues wealth in a very systematic, process.
Absolutely.
And it takes grit. And I can tell you that if there were an easy button that anybody could push during their first year of business and say, this is hard, this is killing me, this is more than I thought it would be. If I push this button, it all goes back to what it was, no harm, no foul. There wouldn't be a single business on the planet, because business is hard. And so many entrepreneurs get into this and they think, well, this is going to be easy and I'm going to be working from, this Greek island and blah, blah, blah. Maybe, but probably not. Get ready.
If everybody could do that, there's not enough huts on the cabanas on the island.
Exactly.
There's not enough beautiful, crystal clear water for everybody. It would be overpopulated. Can you imagine?
Exactly.
That's one of the reasons I used to go to Myrtle Beach when I was in my teens with my friends and my high school sweetheart. And we used to go with her family, and it was fun. And it was kind of like total party town. And it was fun when we were that age. And the beaches were nice and everything, but it was, man, when I got older into my 20s and married and wanted to go on vacation to escape all the craziness, I was looking for, I remember I was in the Bahamas. I said, take me to the island that has where nobody's at right now. Take me there. And I remember it's beautiful. It was like a postcard, but yeah, I mean, if everybody could be there.
Entrepreneurship, it sounds sexy, but it's hard. It's incredibly rewarding. It is so soul moving, and you're going to find gratitude in things you never would think you'd find it in. But, guys, the listeners, gals, know that your horizon has to be 10 years plus. It may not take you that long. It may only take you 3, but set it for 10 so your expectations are set. But know that this will be hard. All you have to do is stay in the game. You have not lost if you stay in the game. And so many people quit before they really even got started. So just set your horizon for 10 years. And if it happens in 3, it happens in 5, home run, walk off homer. But have that mentality, and you'll be a lot happier person for the journey.
Amen. So many good things there, Roger. This was an awesome, powerful half hour. I'm going to have you on soon. We're going to talk more about legacy. We'll talk a little bit more strategy as well. And I want people to check out RockBox and what you're doing there, and Beem. And we'll talk a little bit more about the franchising model, and anybody who's interested as an entrepreneur but wants more in franchising, we'll hit on that in 2.0. This is amazing. I like to end every episode. I say, be great and be grateful. I'm grateful for you. And I'll say this, I work with a lot of C-level people now, either through the podcast or with Social Chameleon as business partners or clients of mine. And a lot of times, people at that level have a little bit of the inflated ego, and it's just something they don't even realize. And sometimes it's 12 out of 10 on the extreme meter, and sometimes it's maybe 3. But with you, man, you're just a refreshing person. I hope now you're going to inflate your ego after talking to me. But no, I just want to say, man, you do things the right way from what I can tell. And really proud to be working with you. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I'm just as grateful. So I appreciate it.
Thank you for hanging with us all the way until the end. If you haven't done it already, you can click right over here to subscribe to my channel. Make sure you turn on your notifications so you're notified of all of the updates. If you guys like shorter clips, I have mic drop moments right here. That's when my guest gives an amazing insight, and we capture that right here. Mic drop moments, and down here are the full-length episodes. All my previous episodes are right there.